Hi guys and welcome back to Sports Gamer HD, and welcome back to something a little bit different. Something I did on my former channel, and I called it the Premier League discussion, where basically I talk about transfers that I think each team should make ahead of the transfer window. Before it was the summer transfer window, now of course it's the January window. Don't know what I'm going to call this one. I don't even know what players I'm going to put it in. I don't know whether to put it in Transfer Talk Tuesdays, whatever I called that, or to put it in Let's Talk Football. I don't know. Well, I'll figure that out, but that's irrelevant. Today we're going to talk about Arsenal. Now, normally I do 4 or 5 teams per episode and recommend like 3 signings, but because Arsenal are in a bit of a mess, I'm going to do Arsenal in one video and recommend 5 players. 5 players they should bring in and 5 players I think that need to go. These aren't players that I think they will sign necessarily. These are players I think they should sign. Of course, this is all just my opinion, and you may agree or disagree, and leave me in the comments what you think on my recommendations, and let me know what you think, of course. And yeah, and then after this I'm going to carry on with the rest of the teams. Probably won't do any other teams as a very specific video for them, like I'm doing for Arsenal. Don't think any of the teams justify it at the moment. Maybe QPR, maybe, but we'll see how they're doing later on towards January. Hopefully I'll have this out tomorrow on Sunday sometime, hopefully. But yeah, let's crack on with my recommendations. First player I think they need is a striker, and that's Klaas-Jan Huntelaar. Now, a player who Arsenal have been linked with. In reality, they have been linked to them, and so have various other teams. Tottenham, Liverpool, I believe, just off the top of my head. He's a world-class striker, and I believe his contract up at the end of the season or something like that, and Schalke will let him go for a reduced fee. Now, Arsenal have supposedly got a big transfer budget now after the Fly Emirates new sponsorship deal, and the chief exec has come out and said that he's got money. Arsene Wenger has got money to spend, so this will be a cheaper solution, but not a cheap solution in the sense that he's not good, because he's an amazing striker. So he'll be a cheaper solution. It'll be a bargain, basically, is what I'm trying to say. He'll be a bargain. Just get Klaas-Jan Huntelaar. He would be an amazing striker to have and add a lot of goal threats to the Arsenal attack, and something different as well. He's a different style of striker to Giroud, for example, or Podolski. And yes, earth to Wenger, Lucas Podolski is a striker. Maybe Podolski should walk out onto the pitch with like a sign on his head saying, "Dear Mr. Wenger, I am a striker," or something like that. Not a left winger. You know, for God's sakes, play him up front. But actually, I'll talk about that in the tactics, I think, because I've come up with the tactic I think they should play. Next one's Leighton Baines. Now, Manchester United have forever been linked with Leighton Baines. Now, they haven't acted on it, and I don't think Man United will act on it in January. If they were to act on it, I think it would be. I thought it was going to be last summer, but I think it could be this summer. So I think Arsenal should trump them and do it and get him. Arsenal have sold Robin van Persie to Manchester United, so you know, rather than be seen as a team that's inferior to Manchester United, Arsenal should go out and trump Manchester United and grab Leighton Baines, a player who Man United do want. So. Well, supposedly, rumour has it they want. So Arsenal should go out and trump United on this one and get him. He would be a world-class option at left-back, and crucially, he's got Premier League knowledge, yes. He's also now the England first-choice left-back, because I believe Ashley Cole's retired. So you get an England international. Now, they've been linked with Jetro Willems, or however you pronounce his name, the young Dutch player. Now, the reason I wouldn't sign Jet Williams, call him Williams, reason I wouldn't sign him, even though he is international, he's like 18, 19 years old, and you don't need that. You've got Kieran Gibbs, for God's sakes. You need someone who knows the league and is going to come in and just hit the ground running, basically. That's what they need, because Andre Santos is just rubbish, in my opinion, and needs to go, but I'll get onto that when I say recommend players to go. But Leighton Baines needs to come in as your first choice left back for Arsenal, with Kieran Gibbs rotating with him and getting the odd game here and there, coming off the bench, stuff like that, I think. Next one's Yann M'Vila, French international. Says he's a defensive midfielder, but he's actually a balling midfielder, stroke anchorman. Depends on which way you want to play him. You can play both. I'd actually play him as a balling midfielder for Arsenal in the specific tactic I'm going to recommend. Now, I believe it was earlier in the summer in the summertime, I believe it was. He fell out with the Rennes boss, and they made him train with like the youth team or something ridiculous. Now, because he wanted to leave and he was so vocal in it, whatever. I don't know the reasons, but Arsenal, I believe, could get him, particularly with Wenger's French ties, obviously being French, and his strong history of signing French players. I believe they could get him on the cheap, relatively cheaply. Even though they do have a big budget, I reckon they could get him. I reckon so far the biggest budget will have to go on to Leighton Baines, because Everton don't have any real reason to sell him, to be honest. Because particularly if Everton do lose Fellaini, Everton won't have reason to lose Baines either as well, so it'll cost potentially quite a lot of money. So that's where the money should really go, I believe. But Yann M'Vila could be a relatively costly option in the midfield. I believe they need as a defensive midfielder. After losing Alex Song to Barcelona, Alex Song chose to leave Arsenal, where he was playing regularly, to go and sit on the Barcelona bench. And that should, you know, that should really make Arsenal stand up and take note. You know, they need a defensive midfielder, and they need to show ambition, and they need to spend money, basically. And I believe Yann M'Vila is one of the best balling midfielders, defensive midfielders in the world right now. And he's so young still. That fits in with what Arsenal tend to do in transfer-wise. So I believe Yann M'Vila will be a perfect solution for them. Next player is Tom Ince, or Thomas Ince, depending on which way you want to say his name. Young left winger from Blackpool. Now I'd sign him because if Arsenal did want to play with two wingers, they're going to need a left winger. And as I said earlier in the video, Lucas Podolski is a striker, for God's sakes. Tom Ince is a winger. He can play on both wings, but he's a winger, left winger, fundamentally. That's what he is. Arsenal need a player who can play in his preferred position, which is the wing, not Podolski being made to play out wide. That's not what they need. They don't need that, so they need a winger. So, and also a young one who doesn't... He's going to have to play a lot, but he's not going to have to play as much as, say, a more proven winger in the Premier League would have to play, if that makes any sense. And also Arsenal's record of signing young players such as Jenkinson and Oxlade-Chamberlain, Walcott, Ramsey, the list goes on, young players. So Tom Ince may be favourable to joining Arsenal, to be honest, so it wouldn't be too difficult maybe to get him. Blackpool, again, it might cost a little bit of money, not huge sums of money, because I just don't think he will go for huge sums of money, but he'll cost quite a lot of money, and Arsenal will apparently have got that money to spend, so bring in a good player. Now the final one is Wilfried Zaha, but this one is conditional. If they lose Theo Walcott, they should bring in Wilfried Zaha. If they can't convince Theo Walcott to stay, and they do end up flogging him off to Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, whoever buys him, they need a replacement, and I believe Wilfried Zaha is another ideal solution for them. I do believe that, because he's actually very similar to Theo Walcott in many respects. Very fast, can play on the right wing or play up front. Very similar. Obviously it's too early to really say whether he's going to be a more end product than Walcott has at the moment, because he's still so young, so that will develop in time. It depends how clubs choose to develop him, I think. At the moment, for example, Theo Walcott's very just all pace. A lot of people say he's all pace. I believe he's all pace and not a lot of end product. So at the moment, Wilfried Zaha is kind of that way, but in the future he may develop more skill and more end product. So I think get him now, and again, trump the likes of Tottenham, again Man United, trump these teams and show that hey, we're basically just say we're still here, we're Arsenal, we are still here. Get Wilfried Zaha and just make everyone else stand up and take note that Arsenal are a club that are showing a lot of ambition and splashing the cash and bringing in lots of players and willing to compete with Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, etc. Just show a lot of intent. Okay, so before I show you the players I think they should go, I think I'm going to show you the tactic. Now, it's a 4-3-3 with 3 strikers. Now, this tactic, I believe, is very, very, very flexible for the players that Arsenal should bring in. Because if Arsene Wenger, say you're at home, say you're playing a weaker team at home, go through up front. Go through up front, show a lot of attacking football and attack, win. Win big. Don't just win by 1 or 2, win big. thrash the opposition effectively. So, but just say you want to make a couple of alterations and change things up a little bit. You can even put Podolski out wider as maybe as an inside forward. You could do that, and then if you wanted to just say not play Giroud or not play Huntelaar, purpose of this will get rid of Giroud, then you could easily bring in Oxlade-Chamberlain, say up front on the wing, even drop him a little bit deeper if you really wanted to, or push him a little bit further up, but play him as a winger, not as an inside forward. Or even Wilfried Zaha could equally go there and play as an inside forward, so you'd have 2 inside forwards and a striker. You could do that if you really wanted to. Or you could even do, if my computer stops lagging a little bit, you could even do, just say you wanted to keep the 2 Huntelaar and Giroud and Podolski all on the pitch at the same time, but you still want the width, so you could easily just put Podolski out wider. Cazorla could float out wider as well, and then you're missing an attacking midfielder, so if you really wanted the attacking midfielder, push Jack Wilshere up. And that way you're still offering 3 strikers, well, 2 strikers and an inside forward, and then a winger, strike attacking midfielder and Cazorla, as well as Jack Wilshere, and then Jan and Villa could even just drop deeper and hold the midfield. I believe that would be just the perfect scenario for Arsenal. It just shows so much flexibility in what they can do with this tactic. They're not tied to doing one thing in a game. They could even go to a 4-2-3-1 effectively if they wanted to. Just drop the 2 wingers down and play Thomas Ince on the left wing, and then on the right wing Oxlade-Chamberlain, for example. Just play with 1 striker up front. It's so much flexibility in what they can do with this tactic. And also, in my opinion, this tactic fits. If they made these signings, this tactic allows Arsenal to put their best players on the pitch. Now at the back, I'm not sure who you'd go with at the back. Whether you'd go Vermaelen and Koscielny, or Mertesacker and Vermaelen, or Vermaelen and I can't remember the combination. I've not said. Whatever, you get the point. I don't know which one you'd go with. I don't really have a favourite on either of Mertesacker or Koscielny. I would play Vermaelen, but I don't have a favourite on Mertesacker or Koscielny. Wouldn't bother me who played. And also, having the likes of Mikel Arteta on the bench, who can come in and rotate with Wilshere in the midfield. Of course, Wilshere has had a couple of bad injuries, so you want to be careful not playing him, overly playing him, because he might be susceptible to other injuries. So it's good to have the likes of Mikel Arteta on the bench, and even Abu Diaby to come on and just take his place a little bit and give him a bit of a breather as well. You can't expect Santi Cazorla to play all the time as well, so you can of course ask Oxlade-Chamberlain to play a more attacking midfielder role, or push Wilshere up. It's just so much flexibility if you make these signings, I believe. Okay, so the 5 key players I think that have to go are Marouane Chamakh as the first one. He's not done it since he's moved from Bordeaux to Arsenal. He's just not done it, and I think they should cut their ties with him, get a decent fee for him if they can. Ideally sell him, but if you can't, then loan him out. Of course, I think the key thing with all these signings I recommended they make, you've got to be realistic about who Arsenal can attract in January. Teams aren't going to... The best players play for the teams who are still in the Champions League. Well, generally. Obviously, Chelsea and Man City are out and they've got world-class players. But that's not the point. The players who Arsenal will be going after who are of world-class quality are already playing in the Champions League team. So these teams aren't going to want to sell them. They already play for big teams, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the big teams aren't going to want to sell them in January because they're not going to be able to get replacements. So you've got to be very realistic in who you can attract in January. And of course, with Champions League football, that's a big pull. So particularly, of course, Huntelaar's already played in the Champions League, so he's not available. But Leighton Baines hasn't played any European football, so you could play him still. Villa, I'm not sure on if Rennes are in the Europa League or not. Thomas Ince could play there. Zaha could play in the Champions League. So I think it would be a positive not to go for somebody who's already played Champions League football, because if they've already played Champions League football, generally they're going to be somebody who's at a bigger club and is already a superstar. So generally, I think the signings I recommended are realistic and actually better for Arsenal in this current situation. Next one that has to go is Andre Santos. Again, just not done it since he's come in. I believe he wanted to go back to Fenerbahce or Galatasaray, whichever Turkish team he wants. Apparently he wanted to go back there last time I heard, so cut your ties with him and just cut him loose basically. The next player who is Sebastian Squillaci. I think I said that right. And a player no team seems to want. Apparently, from what I've heard, Wenger just wants to get rid of him desperately because Wenger admits he's a bad signing and nobody wants to take him, not even on loan. So just do your best to cut your ties with him. Get him out on loan, or even if you have to, release him from his contract, for God's sake. Just cut ties with Sebastian Squillaci and just free up that wage room a bit. Next player is Andre Arshavin. Again, just cut your ties with him. He's not been as impressive as he should have been when he moved over from Zenit, and I think he'd be open. Russian teams would be willing to take him on. I believe last time I heard, Fulham were interested and also Reading, so you could easily find a buyer for him and just get rid of him. You know, he's not as good a quality as Arsenal need anymore. He's 31 years old, 32 years old, so he's getting on a bit. He's not of the quality Arsenal need now. Final player is Gervinho. Now this one's just because I think Gervinho is just useless. Just get rid of him. Whenever I see him, I just think he's awful. Arsenal fans, if you know people who watch him more often than I do you think he's any good? Because I've spoken to Arsenal fans and I've never heard anybody say they think Gervinho is a very good player at all. So just cut your ties with the damn player. Get rid of him and bring in some young English talent like Wilfried Zaha and Thomas Ince on the wings. Bring those players in. You know, let Oxlade-Chamberlain get even more game time. Just really, you know, develop players who are worth it. Because Gervinho, from what I see, he's useless. Just don't waste your time with him. Just get rid of him. Get rid of Arshavin, Andre Santos, Shamak. Get rid of these players. And then in the summer, you've got to get rid of the likes of Bentner and Park Chu, whatever his name is. Get rid of those players. Actually, I'm not even going to talk about them. I think there needs to be quite a few more signings. Well, not necessarily more signings, but definitely more players to go. So I guess replacements have to be brought in. But you get what I'm saying. I think that requires a whole other video, and I'll do that at the end of the season when I get a better appreciation of where Arsenal finish, or are likely to finish. Depends when I choose to do that video. But that's really about it for me. I guess the thing I'm trying to say is, with the signings of the likes of Huntelaar and Leighton Baines and Envia, and even Ince and potentially Zaha, go big or go home. Basically, don't mess about and bring in second-rate players. Bring in quality. I think in certain positions, such as striker with Kassan Huntelaar and left back with Leighton Baines, I think you need quality, not youth. But then I think on the wings you can go with youth who are good, and then they're going to become quality, I think. Because if you know, it really is, as I said, go big or go home. If you bring in someone who's not so good, maybe as a short-term solution, and you buy them on a permanent, what you're going to be met with is, if Arsenal can turn their season around and do qualify for the Champions League and, well, qualify for the Champions League, they're not going to win the league, not going to win the league anymore. So qualify for the Champions League. If they do qualify for the Champions League, and this does work, next season you're met with the scenario of having some players who aren't really good enough. They were just brought in on a short-term measure in case you didn't qualify for the Champions League, and then you wouldn't be left with players who are too good not be in the Champions League, if that makes any sense. So, you know, then you'll be met with the scenario where you've got players like Santi Cazorla, Jack Wilshere, who are very good and should be in the Champions League, and then you're met with some players who aren't really good enough in your squad, and then you're right back at square one again, because yeah, I know what I'm trying to say. I've rambled a lot now. As I said, I will be going through all the teams in the Premier League and recommending probably 3 players per team who I think these teams should bring in. Not necessarily will be doing who they should get rid of, but definitely who they should be bringing in. I'll do all the different teams. And then I'll recap who they do actually bring in February sometime. But that'll do it from me. Follow me on Twitter so you can see... you can see my reaction to signings that actually do happen in January. I'll be tweeting out a lot. So I'll leave a link in the description to that. Leave a like on this video if you've enjoyed it, and leave me comments on what you think of the players I recommend, and I will see you guys next time.